The Oracle Network.
Hello, and welcome to Cause of Death. My name is Jackie Moranti. I've been studying infectious disease for 14 years in various research settings. I have a Bachelor's of Science from Colorado State University in microbiology, immunology, and virology. I've worked with diseases like tuberculosis, SARS-1, and SARS-CoV-2, better known as COVID-19, and I've worked with EHV1. It's my feeling that if we look back at the pandemics of the past, we may be able to better handle the pandemics of the future. The problem is, we have to learn our lessons first. Come along with me while I tell you about the pandemics, the epidemics, and the outbreaks, and how we never seem to learn our lesson.
Hey, Rainbow Warriors. This is my disclaimer. Beyond the Rainbow is a true crime podcast. It's not suitable for young children, and maybe not even for some adults. I tend to swear like a sailor, and I'm kind of proud of that. Listener discretion is advised. Hey there, Rainbow Warriors, and welcome to Beyond the Rainbow, True Crimes of the LGBTQ+. I'm your host, CJ. Are you on the socials? Can I find you? Y'all know where to find me. Facebook and Instagram at Beyond the Rainbow Pod, and Twitter, Tumblr, and TikTok at Rainbow Crimes. My website that holds a variety of information and topics, including missing but not forgotten LGBTQ+ members, is beyondtherainbowpodcast.com. With that, please give a glittery welcome to Rainbow Warrior reporter Haze from England.
Thanks, CJ. This episode's missing LGBTQ person is 17-year-old non-binary trans person, Ronan Hernsdorf Smith. Ronan uses pronouns they and them. Ronan is missing from Avon, Connecticut. Their friends believe they were lured to Enfield, Connecticut and possibly trafficked south to Virginia, if not travelling with traffickers. Ronan is an extremely vulnerable person and easily manipulated, which makes their family and friends very worried about them. Family and friends set up a GoFundMe page to try and hire a private investigator with experience in tracking down trafficked people. The money goal is $25,000 and they are halfway there. In the event Ronan is safely found and brought home, any additional money left would go towards finding other trafficked people and bringing them home. Ronan is 5 foot 10 inches and weighs 280 pounds. At the time of their disappearance, they had dyed green hair, they were wearing a black shirt, ripped black jeans, and black platform shoes. A silver alert has been issued for Ronan. A silver alert is activated when an elderly, developmentally or cognitively impaired person has gone missing and is determined to be at risk. Any information about Ronan's whereabouts can be addressed to the Avon Police Department at area code 860-409-4200. Back to you, CJ.
Thank you, Haze. And I would like to add a little information that I just learned of after Haze sent me a report. Apparently, Ronan disappeared with another trans kid. A trans girl who used to go by Heather but now goes by Quinn. Quinn is white, stands 5'9" and weighs 160 pounds. Quinn has blue eyes and currently has her hair bleached. Quinn is 17 and from a group home, meaning sadly no one is most likely searching for her. But when Ronan took off, Quinn was with her. I came out in a time where labels were actually kind of cool, if not important to most in my community. I was called a baby butch, a soft dyke, a chapstick lesbian. Around 2014, I started a Facebook group called Hopelessly Romantic Lesbians. It had a good run for a couple of years, but when I moved to Hawaii, I had to let it go because it was just too much for me to deal with. When I was running that Facebook group, it was during a time that I noticed the women did not want to be labeled. They were all, I don't know what I am, I'm just me. That's all well and good, and I know that there's still some Klingons from that era. They don't like to be labeled. But here in 2021, I really think labels are back with a vengeance. So much so, it gets very confusing to not know what the labels are. When I volunteered at the LGBTQ+ Center in Sacramento in 2016, I was told how important it was to get the labels correct. I was even given a hurried lecture on what the labels are, what the pronouns are, what a cis man is and what a cis woman is, and how easy it is to offend someone should I use the wrong label or pronoun. When I started that gig, I almost left and never returned after that. But then I decided, suck it up and learn, because if I didn't learn, I'd never grow as a person. I do have a new to me label that wasn't covered in my hurried lecture back in 2016. In fact, before I learned of the case that I'm covering today, I had no idea what the label I'm going to share with you even meant. The label is Asexual Biromantic. The definition I found for biromantic is, a person who identifies as biromantic can be romantically attracted to multiple genders. The definition for asexual is, a low interest in sexual activity and lack of sexual attraction for others. An asexual person can be gay, lesbian, or straight. Therefore, biromantic asexuals seek romantic, but not sexual relationships with people of different and the same gender identities. Biromanticism looks different for each person. Romantic attraction and sexual attraction for many people mean the same thing. In reality, they're two completely different things and they should be looked at as such. So an asexual person can develop a crush on someone. A biromantic person would have a romantic attraction to someone, but they won't desire sex with that person. Cuddling and kissing fall under biromanticism. The actual act of intercourse or any type of oral sex would not fall under the title of biromantic. I think it makes sense to me, and I hope y'all get it too. Our victim in this episode identified as biromantic, romantically interested in both guys and girls, and asexual, not sexually interested in either guys or girls. She was considered an Instagram influencer, which really turned out not to be the case. Her Instagram following wasn't very big until post-mortem. She was an E-girl, E being short for emo being short for emotional. She labeled herself asexual biromantic, and she lived in Utica, New York. She was only 17 years old when she was murdered. Pictures were taken of her newly dead body, only to be posted on the internet by her killer. Her name? Bianca Devins. I've seen it written in several places that Bianca's sexuality is not relevant to the crime committed against her. While I don't believe this was an asexual biromantic hate crime, I 100% believe the motivation behind her killing was sexually fueled. She rejected sexual and romantic advances by the killer. After you hear the story, warriors, let's see if you agree. Born a Libra on October 2nd, 2001, Bianca Devins was a wonderful sister. She was a loving daughter, a good friend. She was also a gifted artist. She'd graduated at the age of 17 from Proctor High School in June of 2019. In the fall, she was looking forward to attending Mohawk Valley Community College in Utica. Bianca wanted to study psychology. I look at pictures of this girl, and I think if she were an animal, she'd be a swan. If she were a fictitious character, she'd be a fairy like Tinkerbell. Bianca had a long neck and a cute little pixie nose. She had porcelain white skin, and depending on her mood, she could be brunette, blonde, or pink-haired. She appeared to be a tall girl, slender, and she could rock wearing bangs like most of us can't. If you saw her out in a crowd, I don't think she would really stand out, even with the pink hair. I don't think she was the type of person who really was extroverted enough to want to stand out. And I know this is purely my speculation based only on photos, but in some way, Bianca Devins seemed familiar to me. Reports of how Bianca met her killer differ. Some say they met via Instagram. Some say it was via the gaming chat site Discord. Reports of the nature of Bianca and her killer's relationship, that differs also. Some say they were boyfriend and girlfriend, and some say they were platonic friends only, with him wanting more. I tend to lean more towards the latter of platonic friends and him wanting more. Someone on social media claiming to be Bianca's sister, and I believe it was, said that the killer had been a family friend, someone they knew. July 13th, 2019, a concert with a Canadian folksy sadcore singer named Nicole Dollanganger was happening at a small venue in New York City. Bianca went to this concert with two of her male friends, a guy named Alex and another guy named Brandon Clark. 22-year-old Brandon picked Bianca up from her family home, and the two rode together from Utica in Brandon's black SUV, meeting up with Alex at the concert. On the road to the concert, Bianca had written to one of her friends on the Discord app. She wrote about Brandon, who was driving.
He's listening to his own music.
Her friend wrote back, "Kinda cringy to be playing your own music unless it's really good. Not gonna lie." Bianca responds,
It's Spotify, just like on genres and stuff.
"Oh, I thought you meant music he made."
No, he's listening to sad stuff, I guess.
Kinda odd to put yourself in a sad mood before a concert. Not long after the messaging, Bianca and Brandon arrived at the concert venue. There they met up with Alex, and the three went inside. During the concert, it's not confirmed what drugs might have been smoked or consumed by the three, but one report said that Bianca had done some ecstasy. At some point, Alex grabbed and held Bianca's hand. He and Bianca had also kissed twice during the concert. These actions caused Brandon to silently seethe. After the concert, goodbyes were exchanged. Brandon and Bianca walked out to the parking lot, and they got into Brandon's black SUV. They started their 4-hour drive back to Utica. It was the middle of the night, and Bianca got back on Discord. She wanted to see if the friend she was chatting with earlier was still there. Bianca started to tell the friend how nice Alex smelled. The friend told Bianca she told Alex to tidy up before he went to the concert. And then the friend asked Bianca if he was still super awkward. Bianca said
Alex was perfect.
She proceeded to tell the friend
He was shy at first, but he loosened up after he smoked some.
From that, I'm assuming they must have smoked some weed and Alex mellowed out after. Bianca continued to tell her online chat friend that the guy friend who drove her to the concert is so mad at her because her and Alex held hands and kissed. And that was about it that Bianca posted on Discord between her and her chat friend. On Sunday, July 14th in the morning, the Oneida County Dispatch, which is where Utica is located, was receiving calls about pictures of a dead girl in the area. These pictures were being posted on social media by a guy claiming to be her boyfriend. Just minutes after that, a guy calls in to police dispatch. He claims to have killed his girlfriend, and now he's threatening to kill himself. The police are able to trace the call to Poe Street in Utica. Units are dispatched to the location. A single police officer is the first one to respond. The scene the officer comes upon at the end of the street is a green tarp with something under it on the road. Parked near is a black SUV. There's also a man kneeling beside the tarp. In one hand, he's holding a knife to his throat, and in his other hand, he has a phone. The man then lays across the tarp, and he starts to take selfies with the phone while holding the knife to his throat. The officer begins to walk towards the man. His weapon is drawn. The man tells the cop that the girl's under the tarp, and that's when the officer notices a tuft of hair poking out from under the tarp. As the other officers begin to arrive, they approach the man. That's when the man slices at his own throat, takes some selfies, and then is disarmed by law enforcement. Law enforcement cuff him and take the man into custody. The man was Brandon Clark. The body under the tarp? Bianca Devins. Brandon had slit Bianca's throat. He then took pictures and posted them onto social media. Instagram, Discord, and Facebook were a couple of the sites. Soon other social media outlets began popping up with the images as well. The world was seeing these pictures of a murdered young girl, and they were unable to turn away. Sick fucks would make jokes or sleazy comments about the pictures. Rumors and stories were made up to fit the picture's narrative. Bianca's family and friends were forced to see these pictures, and soon they would lead a crusade to get these gruesome and disturbing pictures of their beloved Bianca removed. These photos remained up on Instagram and Facebook for many days before being removed. Pictures that never should have ever been allowed on these platforms. Some of the reports claim that Brandon filmed himself having sex with Bianca just before he killed her. If this is true, he didn't have sex with her, he raped her. He held a knife and he slit her throat when he was done. Even just based on her innocent chat that she had with her friend on the way back from the concert, Bianca wasn't interested in Brandon. She's not willingly going to have sex with him. Brandon held a knife and he slit her throat when he was done. That's not sex, even for someone with kinks. That's rape. Although I've not seen one allegation of rape in this case. Brandon Clark lived through his suicide attempt. He pleaded guilty to second-degree murder. He was tried and sentenced to 25 years in prison for second-degree murder. A few months later, with his Donald Trump comb-over, Brandon was back in court appealing his sentence. He cited ineffective counsel. He told the judge he didn't know there was missing evidence. He didn't know he could say he was under severe emotional duress at the time of the murder and have his charges dropped to manslaughter. Brandon asked for a new attorney. He asked to withdraw his plea and to have a new trial. The judge said, "Sorry, you can't do that." Brandon's sentence stuck, with Bianca's family publicly saying they hope he never gets out. He's a danger to society. Several things happened from this case I'd like to give some mention to. In September 2020, Bianca's Law was spearheaded by Bianca's family and Congressman Anthony Brindisi. The law will require social media outlets to establish an office that's dedicated to identify and remove violent content. Content that violates the platform's moderation standards. I mean, come on, social media. What's the point of having these moderation standards if you don't have anybody policing them? I believe the law is still awaiting approval by Congress. Personally, I've noticed a lot more people are complaining about their accounts being suspended or put on hold for having questionable content that they posted. So I'm wondering if this could be the start of Bianca's Law. I don't know. Could be. Something else to point out. Both Bianca and Brandon have been reported to have mental health issues. Bianca had depression, anxiety, PTSD, and borderline personality disorder. At the age of 16, she was actively getting help for all, and she was on a road to recovery. Brandon apparently grew up in an unstable home where his dad abused his mother on a regular basis. Brandon had even witnessed his father holding a knife to his mother's throat, saying he would kill her and then himself. That situation was nullified by the police, but Brandon was taken out of his parents' home and placed with a foster family. Brandon seems to suffer from depression, and he's easily pulled into obsession over things and with people. I'm not sure if there's an official diagnosis of Brandon's mental issues. In July of 2021, the family of Bianca sued the Oneida County District Attorney's Office, accusing them of the distribution of child pornography. Producers of a documentary about Bianca's murder received footage of Bianca Devins' death and of her having sex, including the contents of her phone, which included a few nudie photos. The video and the photos were given to the producers by the district attorney's office, which to me is just fucking unbelievable. This legal team, who is supposed to be on Bianca and her family's side, I can't believe that they would do something so disrespectful as this. Criminal charges should be applied against them as well. And at very least, these attorneys need to have their licenses revoked. First of all, that's attorney-client privileged information. And Bianca was only 17 years old. That's classified as child pornography. Hopefully, this rainbow crime will receive full unicorn justice at some point. Rest in power, Bianca. This episode's quickie crime is an oldie, but as always, it's a crime about our community that should never be silenced or hidden. Carl Panzram was 39 years old and serving time at Leavenworth Federal Prison in Kansas. He was speaking to someone about his upcoming execution when he said,
"I look forward to a seat in the electric chair, or to dance at the end of the rope, just like some folks do for their wedding night."
September 5th, 1930, Carl's much-anticipated execution would happen.
"Hurry up, you Hoosier bastard. I could kill 10 men while you're screwing around."
This Carl shouted at his hangman, just before the trapdoor opened beneath Carl's feet, and his neck snapped. Carl was nothing if not a man of many words and original quotes. He was 6 feet tall, tattooed. He was a burglar, an arsonist. He was a sadistic rapist and murderer. And those were his good qualities. I'm just joking. He really had no good qualities. He was an evil son of a bitch for sure. Carl was born in 1891 to impoverished Prussian immigrants in Minnesota. Growing up, he was subject to severe abuse and neglect. His father abandoned Carl's mother and all the children, and he just left, leaving Carl's mom to raise 5 kids on her own and tend to the family farm. Carl's first ever arrest happened when he was 8 years old. He was arrested for being publicly intoxicated. I try to envision that, and it's kind of funny, but it's also very sad. At the age of 12, Carl broke into a neighbor's home and he stole cake, apples, and a gun. When he was caught, he was sent off to a notorious Minnesota Christian reform school. He, along with most of all the other children at this school, was raped and assaulted by the staff at the school. All of this helped to mold Carl into the man he became. Carl's comment about the school was this:
"I was reformed all right. I've been taught by Christians how to be a hypocrite. And I learned more about stealing, lying, hating, burning, and killing. I learned that a boy's penis could be used for something besides to urinate with, and that a rectum could be used for other purposes."
As an act of revenge on the school, Carl set fire to the school's buildings, and he lied about any involvement in it. Taken at his word, Carl suffered no consequences for the act of arson, but he was sent back to his family. By the age of 14, already an alcoholic and a thief, Carl ran away from home. A year later, at 15, he was enlisted in the United States Army. There he was arrested for burglary and larceny, earning him several years at Fort Leavenworth's disciplinary facility. While he served time there, Carl's mindset got even worse. He would leave Leavenworth to commit even more acts of crime. Oh, Carl continued to burglarize people's homes and businesses, and he'd find himself behind bars many more times. As Carl came into adulthood, that's when he had his growth spurt. Arson and vandalism became new skills that he would add to his other crimes. Carl was just bad news. He was also criminally active in many states and countries. He didn't like to stay anywhere long, including prison. Several times after being incarcerated in the Pacific Northwest, specifically in the Oregon area, Carl would escape prison. And while he was out, he would steal again. He'd get caught and be put back into prison. The last time he escaped an Oregon prison, he used a sawtooth saw to get through the bars. He then shaved his mustache and hopped on an eastern-bound freight train. He also changed his name to John O'Leary. And by the end of Carl's life, he ended up having a dozen aliases. Given Carl's size of 6 foot and the fact that he bulked up each time he was in prison, what else did he have to do, right? Carl would rob men and rape them. Sometimes he would even murder them. In 1920, Carl, at the age of 29, burglarized then War Secretary, but soon-to-be President of the United States, William Taft's home. He stole Taft's beloved pistol, a 45mm Colt. He also took some jewelry, some money, and some savings bonds. Carl called this burglary his revenge against Taft for approving his sentence in Fort Leavenworth. With his new stolen gun, Carl's crime spree continued for another 8 years, getting more brutal with each one. He had stolen enough money from Taft to buy a yacht. This newfound sailing hobby became a passion for Carl. It enabled him to be able to meet sailors, lure them into bars to get drunk, and then take them into dark places where he could rape them, rob them, and kill them. He would then take their bodies and dump them at Execution Rocks Light, which is a lighthouse between New Rochelle and Sands Point in New York. Carl killed 10 sailors like this, and then his yacht sunk near Atlantic City. I had mentioned before Carl went out of country. He traveled out of the U.S. to other countries, including Africa. And when he was in other countries, he would rape and murder several young boys along the way. Carl came back to the U.S. just 2 years later. When he returned, he raped and he beat an 11-year-old boy to death with a rock. This happened in Salem, Massachusetts. He also did this to another young boy. He raped the boy and he strangled him to death in Connecticut. Carl was finally caught after another burglary, at which time he confessed to killing the 2 small boys. He ended up being only sentenced to 25 years at Fort Leavenworth. While he was serving this sentence, Carl beat to death another prisoner in 1929. Finally seeing this piece of shit would never be reformed, Carl was sentenced to death. A year later, Carl would yell at the hangman as he was getting ready to have his neck snapped. While Carl waited for his execution, he did write an autobiography. In it, he detailed his crimes. Carl claimed to have killed at least 21 people, mostly boys and men. He also said he had over 1,000 burglaries, robberies, larcenies, and arsons. Oh, and that he had raped at least 1,000 guys. I don't think anyone really shed a tear when this fucker was executed. Bye, bitch. Love you, Rainbow Warriors. Remember, it's not a crime to be gay. Unless you're a fucked up piece of shit murderer like Carl. Don't be like Carl.